typically make the playoff. But in the odds tell me that typically you're going to lose a few guys. And so I guess my point is this. I don't think Georgia has much of a margin for error this year if they're going to make the playoff, because you have so much inexperience. And then behind that inexperience, you have some real green guys. So I just don't think the margin for error is there. And I don't want to set myself up or even the Georgia audience for anything that wouldn't be fair. That's kind of my thought.
So I'm guessing you're going to disagree with me on this, but I want to have the conversation anyway. Let's say that 2021 didn't happen. Let's say I waved a magic wand. That year just disappeared. That, we went straight from 2020 to 2022, the year we're about to go into. I believe that if you look at this Georgia team on paper right now, I say it is more of a legit championship contender on paper than any other Kirby Smart team was prior to the season beginning. I'm going to include 2017 on that there as well, because there wasn't a lot of chatter about UGA prior to the 2017 season. I'll take the kind of on paper style buzz of this team more so than any other team in the Smart era. Now, by the way, there wasn't also a ton of national championship predictions for Georgia before last year either, but the fact they won the title just sort of clouds the discussion. So take 2021 out of this. I think this defense looks better on paper than the other defenses did to begin the season. I think the totality of the offense probably does there as well. Removing 2021 from the discussion, Mike, I believe this is the best team on paper to begin a season that Smart has had.
Wow. Well, so you're going chips all in on Stetson Bennett then, because I'm going to tell you I think 2018 Jake Fromm was better because of the secondary and all the first-round guys, Richie LeCount, Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell. Jordan, they did have a pretty good front. They didn't have, I don't think Jordan was it, but you had Monty Rice in there. I'm going to go 2018. And I think your argument for this boils down to whether or not people buy into that Stetson Bennett can elevate his game and score points when he needs to. I think that's what, and some people will say, well, sure he can, because a lot of the offense wasn't really needed. And Todd Monken told us that. He said, there were a lot of times in the second half, we turned it down, right? Texas is all gas and no brakes. Well, Kirby puts the brakes on in the fourth quarter. We've seen Dejon Edwards carry the ball 13 times in the fourth quarter of a game. We saw against Michigan, 16 plays and 15 of them were runs. So do we believe that if Georgia wanted to score more points and go all gas, more brakes, this offense could be prolific? I think the jury's out. I think the jury's out. And we'll see, because in the SEC championship game and in the spring game, when they needed to rely heavily on his passing game, I didn't see it. Now, the other part of the discussion is the defense. And what will this young defense do? Jalen Carter is fantastic. I'm a believer in Zion Logue. I think he's big time. I think Nolan Smith is an NFL player. I think the linebacker play outside of Jamon Dumas-Johnson, I think you got questions there. You got a couple questions at linebacker, and I got questions in the secondary. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on the secondary. Every week we went to the interviews, and Chris Smith and Louis Sean told us, we got problems. We got problems. We got to go to the lab. You guys don't see it because our pass rush is so doggone good, but we are not as good on the back end as you think. And you lost your best cover guy, and you lost the first-round safety. So from a talent standpoint, and that's, I agree with you. But from what they've done on the field, I have questions. And I feel good about this offense, to be clear. I think that the running game is going to be – I think this is the best run game they've had since 2019. I think when Swift was awesome. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough of a passing game, that he could, have much room to work with. And that's why I say, BA, this all boils down to Stetson Bennett. Because if Bennett can get the ball downfield and be as efficient this year as he was last year – and game circumstances are going to be different. Field position is not going to be what it was. You're not going to get as many possessions, and sometimes you might play from behind. But if he can stay as efficient this year as he was last year, then you, my friend, will be right in that premise.
But if you want to compare Bennett to C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young and you take the other quarterback, I got no problem with that. But if the comparison with Jake Fromm, and I say this as a Fromm fan, Stetson Bennett's already better than Jake Fromm. Like what Bennett did last year was better than what Fromm did in 2018. He had a better year. Now, if you're going to say, well, I don't think he's going to come back and replicate that, that's obviously an opinion. We'll find out if that's true one way or another. But Bennett already has surpassed Jake Fromm's quarterback play in my mind, with a chance to, either add to that or whatever here in 2022. But Fromm in a Georgia uniform never had as good a year as Bennett had a year ago.
Well, that's true. JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett had the two highest passer ratings in Georgia football history. Both of them had higher passer ratings than JT in 2020 and Stetson higher than Aaron Murray. How much of that's Stetson Bennett and how much of that's Todd Monken? I think I think Jake Fromm's a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett. I think he's better. I think he throws better. I think he makes better decisions. His mobility wasn't as good. But I thought he was a better quarterback. I think if you put Jake Fromm in last year's team, they don't lose a game all year. We can't play that imaginary game. But to your point, and I'll agree, and I'll say it again, if Stetson Bennett can be as efficient and put similar numbers up from a passing standpoint, touchdown to interception ratio, passing efficiency, if all those numbers can be that good. But my question is, how much of Stetson Bennett's success was a byproduct of having a defense that was holding teams to 6.9 points per game during the regular season and favorable field position with a guy that I don't think we talk often enough. And JT, by the way, JT Daniels too. I mean, JT Daniels isn't beating Clemson without a championship defense. Clemson's defense put the clamps on. JT Daniels isn't coming from behind against Cincinnati if the defense doesn't shut Cincinnati down in the fourth quarter after Georgia's down 21-10. So I say the same thing about JT. JT benefited from that defense every bit as much. Any quarterback would. That's not a knock on Stetson Bennett that he had a championship defense. The question is, what happens to Stetson Bennett and the offense, Todd Monken for that matter, when you don't have a championship defense, when you don't have the luxury of playing ahead 90% of the time, when you're not starting out at your own 40-yard line? And if those numbers can stay efficient, even though those other circumstances will likely change because Jake Camarda is not coming back, then I agree with you. But to me, that's where the proof is in the pudding. And it'll be really – I felt really good about the 2018 team, though, Brandon. I got to tell you, I mean, you look at that defense, man. Tyson Campbell, DeAndre Baker, Eric Stokes, Richie LeCount was an All-American before the injury. Those linebackers, that line wasn't what it was now, but it was still pretty good. Swift in that – I love Swift in the backfield. Thought so much of him. NFL receivers. I like Nod at tight end. The Great Wall offensive line. Man, that's a great discussion. It really is a great discussion point.
Well, we'll have to have it more in the time to come. Mike, thanks for being here on DawgNation Daily.